In a quiet village nestled deep within the rural heartlands of the Philippines, the early morning sun rose slowly over a modest home. Inside, a woman cried, not tears of joy, but of fear and uncertainty. Her name was Maria Sablan, and she had just given birth to her first child, Rico. But Rico was born without arms. The room fell silent. The midwife hesitated. Maria's husband, Tomas, stood at a distance, his face pale with shock. The only sounds were the faint cries of the newborn and Maria's quiet sobs. Family members gathered around, some stunned, others whispering under their breath. What kind of life will he live? How will he eat? How will he survive? There were no answers, only silence. But Maria, clutching her baby tightly to her chest, whispered one thing through her tears. "My child is not broken. He is different, and I will help him live." That one promise would shape Rico's entire life. As Rico grew, his difference became more obvious, but so did his resilience. While other toddlers used their hands to crawl and play, Rico learned to maneuver with his feet and shoulders. His mother spent hours helping him adapt to everyday life. She tied spoons to his toes so he could feed himself. She created games that would help him strengthen his legs and develop dexterity. She turned their tiny kitchen into a training ground for independence. It was slow, painful work. Every task that came naturally to others, brushing teeth, opening a door, tying shoelaces, became a small mountain to climb. Rico would sometimes cry in frustration. Sometimes he refused to try. But Maria never gave up on him. "You don't need arms," she would say, kissing his forehead. "You only need heart." Tomas, quiet and often withdrawn, took longer to accept their son's disability. But over time, he too began to show his love. He built special tools for Rico, fashioned a desk with a low height so his son could study, and adjusted household items to help him become more independent. Their love wasn't loud, but it was steady. At school, however, the world wasn't as kind. Children whispered, whispering. Some laughed. Teachers didn't know what to do with him. He had no desk that fit his body, no textbooks that he could easily manage. Some teachers doubted if he should be there at all. Still, Rico persisted. Using his toes, he learned to write. Slowly, painfully, but with determination. His feet became more than limbs. They became instruments of expression. He didn't just adapt. He began to shine. Then one day, at the age of 8, everything changed. Rico was walking home from school when he noticed an old man in the town square, painting a beautiful landscape on a worn canvas. The sky, the trees, the reflections on the water, they all seemed alive. Rico stood motionless, mesmerized by the brush dancing across the canvas. That night, he asked his mother for paper and a pencil. With quiet focus, he placed the pencil between his toes and began to draw. The lines were shaky. The shapes were uneven. But to Rico, it was magical. It was the first time he felt like he was creating something. From that moment on, Rico was unstoppable. He practiced every single day, first sketching, then using watercolors. Eventually, he transitioned to oil paints. At first, he struggled to control the brush. But with time, he developed his own technique, gripping the brush tightly with his toes and guiding it with a dancer's grace. His room became his studio, the floor his easel. He painted sunsets, faces, animals, and dreams. His art was raw and emotional, filled with color and movement. And though no one said it out loud, his talent was undeniable. But talent doesn't silence critics. As Rico began to share his work locally, some praised it, but others sneered. "Pity art," one man scoffed at a town exhibit, muttering, "He only gets attention because he has no arms." A gallery owner muttered. Those words pierced Rico like daggers. He began to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe people didn't admire his art. Maybe they only admired the story behind it. Late at night, he would sit alone, staring at his canvases, questioning his worth. But then he would remember the day he saw that painter in the square. He would remember how alive the colors felt, and he would pick up his brush again. Because for Rico, painting wasn't about fame. It was about freedom. At the age of 21, Rico decided to enter a national art competition. He submitted a painting titled "Joy in the Storm." It featured a small child walking through a thunderstorm, holding a red balloon. The child had no arms, but wore a glowing smile. Rico didn't expect to win. He wasn't formally trained. He had no connections. But deep down, he hoped someone would see his soul in that painting. Weeks later, he got a letter. He had won first prize. The announcement made national news. "Armless artist wins national competition," blazed across headlines. Television stations called, interviews were arranged. People from around the world wanted to know about this young man who painted with his feet and his heart. Suddenly, Rico's life changed. But he stayed humble. He still lived in his small village. He still painted in his room, sitting cross-legged on the floor. He continued creating art not for money or fame, but for meaning. With time, Rico began speaking at schools, inspiring students, especially those with disabilities, to never give up on their dreams. He taught children how to paint with their feet, with their mouths, or with their imagination. One of his students, a girl born without hands, once told him, "Before I met you, I thought I was broken. Now I know I'm different, and different is beautiful." His work was displayed in galleries from New York to Tokyo. He held sold-out exhibits. He even painted a mural at a hospital for children with special needs, showing two doves flying over a mountain, each with no wings but soaring high. Through it all, Rico remained grounded. He credited his mother for believing in him when no one else did. He thanked his father for learning to love differently. And he carried with him a quiet truth. "My body may be different, but my spirit is whole." Today, Rico continues to paint. His feet move with precision, grace, and purpose. His eyes still light up at every blank canvas. But beyond the paint and the colors, what truly moves people is the story behind it all. A story of resilience, love, pain, and strength. Rico reminds us that greatness doesn't come from what we lack. It comes from what we choose to do with what we have. His story teaches us that it's not the challenges that define us, but how we rise beyond them. And most of all, he shows the world that beauty has no limits, no shape, no arms. It simply requires a soul that refuses to give up. If you're watching this and struggling with your own challenges, whether physical, emotional, or invisible, remember Rico. Remember that even a child born without arms can paint masterpieces that touch the world. So what's stopping you? Comment below. I will rise above my limits. Subscribe for more true stories that awaken the strength inside all of us. And always remember, your story is not over. It's just beginning.